All right, this is a TTAC. This is the open closed round. We just got a match of it between DJ and Vid, which I missed, and now we're getting towards Tezuka. I would note here that Tezuka is up 1-0, I believe. I think having won the closed and tied a game of the open. Now, it's SPPWC, Tezuka's first turn. Tezuka definitely has a good shot to end this match here. Tezuka starts with a weak corner. First turn tends to want weakness. They want to be easy to sweep at the end. This makes some sense. And Turdz opposes it with a strong corner. This also makes sense. Now, I recently played a game against Addy that had adjacent corners like this enclosed, but pretty different situation, so I probably shouldn't draw too much analogy to it. It's just the last time I thought about closed adjacent corners, so it comes to mind. That said, let's figure out what the stips are, because I haven't looked at the quarterfinal stips. The quarterfinals are Stuff versus Akiyama. Addy lost to Seto, but nice job making the quarters there. And he had 2 rounds to get there, though I guess one was a forfeit. Vid-DJ is currently tied, and Tezuka-Turdz, Tezuka leads 1-0. We have another window open I'm going to flip over to here, and we're going to be trying to catch that game as well. That is also closed, and Vid his first turn. So we're going to be flipping back and forth. Let's go back to our initial event. All right, rule set. 7 through 9, all decks must use at least 1 level 7 and 2 level 8s. Must use each number at least once, no rares. Okay, so 1 7, 2 8s, 2 9s. We have just seen our a level 8 used by Tezuka. This makes sense. You know, he used his level 7 as his starter. Vid used Turdz used a level 8 in response. Must use each number once. It's kind of interesting. If there's like a 1 dangling, like left in the opponent's hand, because from Turdz's hand, we've only seen 8s and 5s. So we know he has to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9A left in his hand. Now, I think he picked 8855 to have maybe anti-A coverage, but this is usually not a great card, and I don't know how useful information is on this set, but it gives the most information to your opponent possible, because the more you, like, say on your first turn, obviously this isn't an available card, you played a 4-3-2-1. Suddenly, all you know about the rest of the hands is they have high numbers. But if the opponent plays an 8-8-5-5 turn 1, and say a 7-7-6-6 turn 2, then you know on their last 3 cards, they need to have A9-4-3-2-1. Say their next card is a A9-5-2. Okay, that got rid of some of those, but suddenly there's 4-3-1 left on the last 2 cards. There might be very few possibilities for what those could reasonably be to fit into your hand, and you could start giving away significant information. All right, but Turdz did have a nice recapture on their starter, and they did knock some other numbers out. It's expected they'd have 9s left, but I'd be on the lookout for what cards left have 2s, 3s, and 4s. I don't like capturing against the adjacent corner here, because I think it usually gives a comfortable L like this. And now the question is, does Tezuka go 1, or does he go 5? Does he believe Turdz has 5 or not? But at this point, I'd be feeling fairly comfortable from Turdz's position, though the 1 facing out is always kind of dangerous. If Tezuka plays 5 and you go 1, you're really saying, I really, really, really hope you can't combo this. All right, let's take a peek at the other game. Vid starts with a somewhat weak corner. And we have I didn't watch the prior game, so I don't have a sense. I know they have some info about what each other might be likely to play. But here's the thing. If you're playing a set like this that can be closed, and you can run similar hands, but you want to change your level 9s. You don't want to run the same level 9s. Because as we can see in both games, generally the way the game is played is you start with your lower levels and play your higher levels later. Turdz played a level 9 on his second turn, admittedly, but A, it was probably his only recapture, and B, he is on second turn. He doesn't necessarily have to use all his cards. He doesn't have to use all his cards. It's a little easier for him to use his higher levels, or at least one of them, a little early. But in general, the order of play is you're going to start low and finish high because those are going to be the best sweepers. In a world where that's the case, if you start with your low numbers, the opponent playing around them, the important information to have is to avoid your opponent's sweepers at the end and to set up stuff that their final cards cannot take. It's not really to play around their early mid-game cards. It's not that bad if your opponent has a good sense of what your early mid-game cards are likely to be, but it's really bad if they can deduce your final cards from it, or if you've just run the same hand and they know, okay, I'm just playing open. But if you stick with your early cards and switch out your high-level cards, they might think you're on the same hand, and you are not, and they will react badly. So you can play games around that. There was a game my proudest close game ever was in the TTAC. I've told the story before, sorry, but it was in the TTAC title match against Great Sephiroth, and it was on, I believe, the random set, and I think it was a level 4 set, a lot of 7-6-3-2s, and I remember he was switching back and forth between two hands, but not necessarily switching every game. We'd tied like 5 games, mostly open, but he'd been switching between these two variations of the hand, and each of them had 3 cards shared, and the final 2 cards were switched out. And we played a close game where I was defending a Z or an S. I think an S. I think 1, 2, 5, 8, 9. And I had 2 ways of playing that I thought were sensible, and each one of them beat one of his possible hands and lost to the other. And so I had to make a call on which hand I thought he was playing. DJ with an adjacent corner, similar to the last, but again, making a challenge. And actually, this is an interesting point. I didn't like Turdz' use of the 8855, and I could easily be wrong, but my instinct was, I don't like that. I think that gives away too much information. If that's the case, though, then double numbers are not very desirable because it's hard to have enough numbers in your hand if you start running a lot of double numbers, which might mean putting out an A early on second turn. You can use your higher levels earlier because you are on second turn, you're not going to have to use all your cards, and you're not the player who's looking for sweepers. So it could make sense to try this early as a challenge, specifically saying this is a rule set that sneakily disincentivizes double numbers. And so my challenge on second turn, where I can use higher levels earlier, should be around A's. Interesting play from DJ. I like this thinking. No idea if it'll work. It is closed, but I like the thinking. Interesting thought process. I think DJ has played a very nice tournament so far. Tezuka blocks 5, which makes sense. We can also see 1, 2, and 3 have come out of his hand, and he has 2 level 9s remaining. So all he has left to show are 4 and A. So Turdz has no information about his remaining cards, except that at least one of them has an A, but you could have surmised that anyway. Or at least you have to be assuming that's plausible. So Turdz has very minimal information on what Tezuka has, except, actually I think there is pretty strong information, which is Tezuka has played 2 corners for 1 and a corner for 9. We may remember that 2 years ago in TTAC, Piggyman and Tezuka colluded, thought about strategy together. Collusion's fine. I mean, it wasn't like in-game collusion. It was just thinking about hands together. And one thing Piggy said in the interviews, and they made the finals. They both made the finals. They did an incredible pair dominance for a tournament. Piggy-Tezuka finals, having talked about hands together. One thing Piggy said was he quite liked on a lot of different sets playing 2 cards of the same corner and throwing 1 in a weak corner, and then you have a balanced hand remaining. That's what Tezuka has done here, and he's played a card for the opposite corner. So his remaining cards are very likely to be corners for 3 or 7. All decks are in place. There's nothing stopping him from having repeat cards, I believe, so I would personally be putting him on something like Eden and 9A44, that pair, or something like that. I would be thinking A944 is really likely. We know it has to have a 4. We know it has to have an A. Could be A934. Could be A854. But like A944 is going to seem really likely here. And that's probably what I'd be guessing is something like that for at least one of the cards and possibly a pair. We'll see how Turdz plays around that. We'll see if I'm right about Tezuka's hand. I don't call Tezuka hands very well, so we'll see there. Okay, this is a really... You hate to see this card, I think, if you're DJ. But maybe you don't. There's a very good chance DJ is also running this card, because this card is the natural pair for 3A94. So it's entirely possible they're both running the same pair. The problem is, now when DJ lands his 943A, 3A94 in Vid's hand may dominate it. On the other hand, that doesn't give Vid a recapture in 8. So he presumably has a double number up-down, side to side, as well as his double number up-down on his starter. Interesting. Now, if the double number is a level 9, then 7676 would be good in an awful lot of squares here. But I think the level 9 is the 3A94. Alright, DJ forces the action a bit. Now, notably in the always capture game that I talk about sometimes, the structurally correct move for Vid is 2 here. And this is one of the reasons that going in 4 or 8 is really beneficial, is most people will reply in the other of 4 or 8, and that is technically wrong. However, you really need to have 5 in response. How many cards can DJ have good play against in 5? Well, if he does hit 943A, as I've guessed, and people probably shouldn't run pairs as much as I guess they do, but they do run pairs a lot, then it's not a very good card for 5, so the other 2 cards really need to be. Okay, let's check in on the other game. Turdz has gone 1. Now, this is not a card that 9A44s are at all likely to be able to hit, unless the A is facing down and the 4 to the left. But there's no way Tezuka has another card for the corner of 1. So I think this is pretty safe to combos, unless there's like a 5-4A8, which is possible. But that's like the only kind of card. Like, I don't think Tezuka would run like 4-4A7 or something like that. Now, if Tezuka does have 5-4A8, do you risk playing it in 2? Well, something interesting about Turd's hand is he still hasn't shown a 2 or a 3 or a 9. Now, he has a level 8 and a level 9 left. 2, 3, and 9. I don't think he'd run like an A932 or something like that. So I would think one of those cards is one of each. Okay, we do see a 9A44, and the way this is played, it looks very likely 449A is the final card. I think I called this correctly. Because this sets up 449A to be able to take anything and have some plus wall potential. So if you're Turdz, you likely have 2 cards with left value left, right? You haven't played anything with much left value. So probably like a corner for 3 and a corner for 9. You don't want to have a 4 sticking out here. And you probably don't want to have a 3. There might be some chance of like a 3-4-9A, the not exact pair, but kind of close. But like, I'd be okay with a 6 facing out here. I think that's going to tie. I'd be okay with a 1 or a 2 facing out. We know he has a 2 and a 3 in his hand. I'd rather a 2 than a 3. He does the 3 facing out, and I think this will secure the tie. Well, I mean, as I said, there are A943s. I don't know if there are in this configuration. So I would have rather a 2 facing out or a 6. I think 3 is a slightly worse number here. But as long as it wasn't a 4, unlikely to be in too much trouble. Let's check the other game for a sec. I'm curious if Vid goes in 2. 2 always feels really risky because you very rarely have a great lock-in in 2, so the game becomes really complicated because there are cards in every region of the board and there is combo potential. 8 feels a bunch safer, but 8, if your opponent has 5, you're often actually a little behind on first turn, especially because it might be hard for you to go in 8 given that there might be combos through 6. So, yeah, I like how DJ's played this one. And in the other game, we do see Eden. Good job to me, personally. I don't know if Turdz made the same call I did, but I correctly identified the final two cards in Tezuka's hand. So one thing to note, actually, is I was better at calling Tezuka's hand than Turdz's hand, even though Turdz played the 8855 that I thought gave away a lot of information. I'm going to guess Turdz's last card was like A259, something like that. I'm not sure that exact card exists, but something of that ilk. Though if it was A259, I would have played that in 2. I don't know why you'd have a 3 facing out when you could have a 2 facing out. 3-4-9-As are way more common than 2-4-9-As. Though maybe you check the exact cards. So maybe that's not right. So maybe he had a 5 facing to the right and a 2 facing down. Something like 9-5-2A or the like. I don't know. Clearly I had more trouble reading Turdz's hand, though. Though I had more information about Tezuka's because first turn plays more cards. But interesting game. Turdz is going to be happy to have held. Yeah, don't know what the final card was. Maybe he said in the chat. I think you're supposed to say what your final card is just to make sure you followed steps. But I'm not sure. I think Vid did, but I don't know that that's a pattern. All right, Vid does go in 8. DJ goes 5. You basically have to go 5 there, I think. No, you don't. You could go 2. You have to go 2 or 5. If DJ has a combo back in 2, then I think he's doing very well here. I would probably play this for Vid similar to how Tezuka played the other game. I'd probably go in 6 and try to keep my best sweeper. But it's possible Vid doesn't have a sweeper. Because 1797 was his sort of top facing down card. If he has 3A94, which I now don't really think he does have, though it does have a plus in 2, which would be fun if he had it. But if he doesn't have that, and if he does have that, that's a bad sweeper for the top row. As soon as 2 is blocked, it's kind of dead. Not sure what's happening there. This was an interesting game. I like trying to predict cards in closed. If I'm Tezuka, I might run back the same first 3 cards, but switch up my corners. Just to make it look like I'm A944 sweeping again, but I'm actually trying to sweep with something else. If they start another game, we'll try and catch it, but let's finish this other one. 2-8-A6. So yeah, Vid does not play the obvious pairs, which I think is part of his strength in closed, is that he is not predictable here. Now, there's a very good chance DJ has 6. It's just a 1 gap. It's kind of easy to have 6 and not have it combo through. We have seen DJ play a level 7, a level 8, and a level 9. He has a level 8 and 9 left. I think he has 943A, which is not very good here, so he kind of needs the level 8 to hit hard. If it's the opposite of his 8765, then it's not very good. Then he has to play 3. If it's like 6587, though I don't think that card exists. If it's like 5678, he's good. He can play 6 and he can't lose. It was neither of those. Okay. If you don't have 6, then you have to play this way. Yeah. And if you don't think you're going to have play in 6, then it's hard to play 2. So him going 5 made sense, but getting hit with 2 was really bad for him. Now, he does lose to 3A94 here, but Vid can't have that because his remaining card is a level 8. Yeah, I have no idea. There's a lot of 1 and 0 gaps. I don't think Vid will have another card with the same up and down value, so I don't think it will plus off the 9 facing up. Now, Vid has shown a corner for 1, a corner for 9, something kind of left facing, and something kind of down facing. There's a good chance he has something kind of upright facing, which could easily hit this. I kind of think Vid's going to have it here. Let's just check if anything else is happening. They posted the tie. They did not say remaining cards, so if there are remaining cards, they were not noted. I mean, there obviously was a remaining card. I don't know why I've said so many statements as if it's an if statement or like if this when it's like necessarily this. Obviously, there was a remaining card. This is a game where 9 cards are played out of 10. Yeah. So Vid did have a card facing upright. But I don't think DJ had a card to hold here. Because 3299 and 6 doesn't hold either. But it's tough when you think the person's last corner faces towards this. But I think DJ just didn't have another way to play it. I think I think Vid playing 2 was really, really bad for DJ here. And you could argue that means 5 is wrong, but it's not necessarily the case. Because 5 really looks like it sets up 6, so it somewhat disincentivizes 2. So even if 2 screws you, like sometimes you just have to say, well, one of these screws me and one of these doesn't. If DJ had gone in 2 and Vid plays 9, 8, 5, 4, and 5, it's basically the same and just also bad. I guess in that case you could go 3 and it would hold, but kind of a miracle. Yeah, so maybe 2 was the better option given the exact cards, but I think 5 was fine. All right, congrats to Vid. He does win this match after losing the Open. Nicely played tournament by DJ. And another icon for him. And our other game, I guess we'll see if they continue in another video. It's fun to try to predict cards in closed. I think with Vid it's really difficult. He's unlikely to run pairs, which I think is smart. I think pairs are the easiest thing to read. And the only call I made that was correct was because here is a popular power card and it has a natural pair, and so we called it correctly. Which is to say, in rule sets that can be closed, there is some risk to doing that. And we don't know what Turdz' remaining card was, but I suspect he knew some numbers facing out to avoid. Though I also suspect it didn't matter because I don't think he had a 4, 8, or A facing to the right left. Because I think his final card was a card for 9. And I don't think that would have any of those numbers facing out. Because we know it had to have a 2 on it, and it's just what card is going to have a 2 and a 4. Okay, they're switching to the Open, but we will do this in our next video.